Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning to you wherever you might be. Today is July 30th. It is AMA number 19. It is Tisha B'Av. We'll talk about that in a bit. And I have a very, very special guest today, the director of the Warsaw JCC, Agata Rakowiecka, a good friend of mine who's an inspirational, brilliant leader, phenomenal young woman from Warsaw, and we're going to talk to her in a few minutes. Very, very exciting. So we will have all of the JCC directors of Poland in one place together, at least virtually, which is very exciting. So let's see who is out there. I'm just dealing with my technical stuff that I don't see, but let's get to my Facebook here. There we go. Good morning, Jeffrey Rolat. Good to see you. Hope you're recovering well. Jeffrey, recovering from back surgery. Refuah Shalema, Jeffrey. You'll be up and yelling at waiters and cab drivers and everybody in Los Angeles very, very soon. Good morning, Benji. Special surprise for you this afternoon could be Benji. Good to see you. Hi, Lori. Hope Jeffrey's not driving you too crazy at home in his recovery period. Good morning, Sita. My dad is watching. Hi, Dad. Hope you're doing okay on Tisha B'Av. Anything that I might say regarding eating and drinking and how when I was a little kid, I made a point of going swimming on Tisha B'Av, please disregard all of that, Dad. I am preemptively telling you that I am kidding. So let's get to it. Today, as I said, Tisha B'Av. It always felt like a weird holiday to me, like in the middle of the summer and you're in summer camp or wherever you are and away somewhere, usually you're on vacation, and suddenly this like sad fast day. It kind of always seemed to me like, I get that the day is the day, and what a coincidence, the both temples destroyed, and seems like every other bad thing that happened to the Jewish people happened somewhat conveniently on one day, but it feels like that day should have been in the winter, like in February, right? There aren't really many holidays. February would be a good day for Tisha B'Av, but no, not. It's always end of July, beginning of August. And as a kid, it wasn't one of those holidays that I was really very into. And of course, as an adult, I go by the very important maxim: if they celebrated it on my kibbutz in Israel, then I celebrated it. If they didn't celebrate it on kibbutz Yot B'Tah, then it's not really a holiday for me. So I have to say things like, I don't know, Lag Bomer and Tisha B'Av, I don't really pay that much attention to. Kuba Ishak. Hi, Kuba. How are you in Warsaw? Hi, good morning, Victoria Warner. And Marcel Zielinski in Montreal. Hi, Marcel. Say hi to Marilla. How are you? Good morning, Ben in Israel. Yofi Yonatan, indeed. Ben Myers, you lovable rogue, you. Benji Lovett tells us he lost his first JCC Krakow green t-shirt on Tisha B'Av. Well, they say that you never really, you never forget, and you're always really in possession of your first JCC green t-shirt, Benji. So you might have lost it in some sense, but I believe that you'll always have that t-shirt. To be honest, Benji, knowing you for a while pretty well, I'm surprised that you ever lost that JCC green t-shirt, but that's maybe a story for another day. So, Corona situation in Poland, things starting to get bad again. 615 new cases, which is the highest number of cases since the outbreak. Not good, but many people are also recovering. So we haven't. The prime minister said that they're not going to change any of the regulations right now and put on any new restrictions, but they are encouraging people to actually follow the rules, which is a very nice thing. People should be doing that. We can still, most countries in the EU, we can still travel to, except Sweden, Portugal, and Luxembourg. Those Luxembourgers, cause of all trouble in the world. No, so Sweden, Portugal, and Luxembourg, and Great Britain, Ukraine, Georgia. So we can still go to many places in the world. Some places we can't. There's still no American visitors, so hoping that America will do better. I don't know how much better we're going to be doing until November 4th, to be honest. So I think the next 3 months are going to be a wild ride in the US, everybody. But I hope that your Tisha B'Av is okay. For those of you mourning and throw in a little repenting. It's always good to repent. Ben, who do I have to sleep with for a JCC Krakow t-shirt? Ben, maybe jog your memory and see who you've slept with, and perhaps you're already worthy of a JCC Krakow t-shirt based on, we can retroactively give you that for past proposals. Ben, can I suggest that you and Benji speak? Benji is an expert on all things related to JC t-shirts. Emily, I remember giving you your black, with the black background, and I should tell you, Emily, who you and your son were here, and I traded your son a green t-shirt for a blue, sorry, for a JCC Albuquerque t-shirt, which I wore the other day. So I still have my JCC Albuquerque t-shirt, which I wear proudly. So besides Tisha B'Av, what else is going on? Yesterday, Kasha and I left, Kasha had been away, which I'll talk about, but I left Krakow for the first time since March 3rd. I have not been outside of Krakow since March 3rd, a lot of Krakow time. My deep love for Krakow has been tested by being here for 5 months. I do still love Krakow, but it was very nice to get away. We went to Zakopane, which is a mountain vacation resort about 2 hours south of Poland, in the Tatra Mountains. Very, very beautiful part of Poland, a resort, one of those places that's been like a famous resort for many, many years and has lots of cool elements there. And the reason we went there was to take a look at the Jewish cemetery. And a friend of ours, Cordian, who actually brought a bunch of volunteers recently and cleaned up the cemetery, showed me the cemetery. It's up behind this, it's kind of hard to get to and not in the worst shape, but needs to have some work done. And there's a friend of ours, good friend of the JCC, and Ambassador Weiser in Michigan, whose family is actually in that cemetery. He's from Zakopane and helped to renovate the cemetery and is going to do that again. So on his behalf, I went up to see the cemetery and what could be done. And we're gonna work on that to get it up in good shape, but also had the time to visit some friends in Zakopane. It was beautiful place to get some sun and walk around. And it was a nice story. There's a friend that I saw there who's 90 years old, whom I haven't seen in 18 years. And when I first met him, I met his children that were then 16 years old, and he's Jewish, and the children didn't exactly know their family history. And then later on they found out and we became friends. So it was interesting seeing this guy who I knew, and I knew that he was Jewish before his children did. So one of those crazy Polish stories, and I saw him and he's doing very well and has just turned 90. So it was exciting to see him after not having seen him for 18 years. And it was great to get out of Krakow. Good to get some fresh mountain air. Jen Cohen, CJC, Cantor Jen Cohen, the best t-shirt around. Well, I thank you, Cantor Jen Cohen. Cantor Jen Cohen, one of the best cantors around. Dare I say, the best cantor around. From Cherry Hill. So besides Zakopane, we got some excellent mountain cheese. I've talked a few times and said how Osipek, this smoked sheep cheese, is my favorite Polish food, and that's the center of it. That's where it comes from. So we got ourselves some very good, authentic Osipek. And on the way to Zakopane is a place called Nowy Targ. Nowy Targ was a very Jewish place before the war. And in the square, which is a very pretty square, they have a famous ice cream place. Actually, two famous ice cream places, really, one next to the other. And of course, ice cream being ice cream, and my wife Kasha being my wife Kasha, the ice cream fanatic. As you can imagine, we had to get a lot of ice cream. So we had to get 2 ice creams, try both places on the way up, and then made a detour on the way back to try 2 ice cream again from the same 2 places and another place that Kasha had found. So yesterday it was, that's right, 5 ice creams for Kasha Leonardi. 5 ice creams. I should also say Kasha and myself, but we did purchase 5 separate ice creams yesterday from 3 different ice cream places. I'm not proud of it, but hey, got to do what you got to do. So, we did see when Kasha was away, my ice cream intake went down to 0. Kasha's back, sugar intake off the charts. So lots of Osipek, lots of ice cream yesterday and a good time in Zakopane. Kasia did come back Sunday night, so my strange 6-day period of being alone in my house and actually being on my own is over. Luckily, Kasia and Hanya came back. Kasia was very proud that I actually maintained a reasonable level of cleanliness at home, and besides no ice cream, I did manage to feed myself. Kasia's always a little concerned because I'm not the best eater. I don't actually enjoy eating, but I did stay fed and reasonably healthy. Maybe had, was at work 12 hours a day, but still did okay. Next week, very exciting. We are meant to go. I say that because I don't want to say that we're going, considering the state of the world. Never actually sure what's going to happen, but we are meant to go to Greece. That's right. Next Tuesday for 2 weeks, we are meant to go to the island of Kos, which is near Turkey, on the sort of in the southeast of the Greek islands, a little bit north of Rhodes. So if any of you have any advice about Kos or the islands nearby, Rhodes, Rhodos, however we call it, be greatly appreciated. I don't want to get too excited about it because you never know, and there could be some quarantine, or Poland could announce some travel ban, or the airline or something. So hopefully next Tuesday we are going away for 2 weeks, but fear not, faithful fans of the AMA. I will be broadcasting next week from not sure where, from some Greek island. Next Thursday, same time, we will be here, internet permitting. We'll be, and our guest, I thought it was made sense and was relevant to have, as we're traveling, to have my friend Zach Davidson, the preeminent travel expert that I know. Zach is a miles guru and a really fantastic guy, travels, flies all over the world, essentially first class for more or less free. And I thought he'd be a good person to talk to, considering the travel theme of me being in Greece. So that's what's going on with me. Let's get to questions. Very, very exciting. Tomorrow night, we are doing Shabbat dinner. We haven't had Shabbat dinner since March 9th, March 10th, whatever the date in March was. That was the Friday before everything shut down. So we're doing a Shabbat dinner Friday night in the courtyard of the JCC. We have about 50 community members or so signed up so far. That probably means we'll have 70 or 80 here. Not sure how we can fit that with the spacing, but we'll work it out and make sure that everybody is safe. And Kasia will make sure that everybody is well fed. There's a rumor going around that there might be ice cream from Antonio, our local Sicilian ice cream maker, who's this kosher ice cream, that could be something served tomorrow night. Hi, Omer Bachman. Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. Omer Bachman from the Army. Hello, Omer. Jeffrey Rolat. Jeffrey to Zach Davidson, owner of a new apartment in Tel Aviv. I think he's renting, but yeah. Penny Schwartz, journalist extraordinaire from Boston. How are you, Penny? And Agnieszka Gish, also sweet with the big sweet tooth, proud of Kasia for eating 5 ice creams. Don't encourage her, Agnieszka. Don't encourage her. Let's see what other questions. Some people asked, is there a Pani Zosha museum in Poland? Well, what I posted photos yesterday from Zakopane, and there was a photo that I posted of a big house that said, there was a sign on the front of the house which said Pani Zosha. So I posted that it was the Pani Zosha Museum. So actually, no, it is not yet a Pani Zosha museum. I feel like all of Poland is a bit of a Pani Zosha museum, as she's a sort of hero to many of us here. And for those of you who get the JCC newsletter, keep an eye out for a Pani Zosha, big Pani Zosha feature in our JCC newsletter coming up this week. So I will get to one question, and then in a couple minutes, I'm going to get to Agata. Israel is considering opening its borders in August. Are you planning to visit? I always do. Kasia and I always do, along with the US. We almost always do visit Israel every summer. Of course, this summer it doesn't look like it's happening, but with Israel about to open its borders, it does make it possible. We will see. I guess it depends on whether there's a quarantine, what the virus situation looks like in Israel. I don't really want to go to Israel and get corona, but there's a possibility that we'll go and maybe go to, maybe if Yoav Fatah will let non-members in, then maybe we can go down and visit the kibbutz, which I'm sure is very safe and far away from any virus, and always a place that I very, very much want to go to. So yeah, it's strange for me. I haven't been in Israel since the beginning of March. Not that that's so long, but I'm always planning, always during the winter and during the summer, we get to Israel, and not looking great. But listen, first world problems, not being able to travel is not the biggest thing. Lucky to be safe and healthy and have everything we need here in Krakow. So we can't complain too much about being stuck here. It's not a terrible thing. So I hope everybody's having doing okay and doing well. As now, I want to get to my very special guest, Agata Rakowiecka, the director of JCC Warsaw. She's from Warsaw. She lived in Israel. She's been a Jewish educator for years and years, and she is the founding director since the JCC in Warsaw opened in, I guess, 2013, October 13. She has been the director there, and we collaborate a lot, and it's been great having another JCC open in Poland and another JCC director to talk to run ideas off of, and not to be so lonely flying the JCC flag all by ourselves. So for the last almost 7 years, there's been another JCC, a wonderful JCC in Warsaw, headed by the amazing, fantastic Agata Rakowiecka. Hello, Agata Rakowiecka.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I was listening, and wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much. I'm really inspired by things you said. Like, the main thing on my mind is having a kosher ice cream for Shabbat. I think this is, the next project we need to start.
We will send you kosher ice cream.
Please.
Or we can help you, make ice cream is one of those things, pretty easy to make it kosher.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We are on it. We are on it. So first of all, how are you? Everything good?
I'm actually very, very well. Thank you. It's this paradox of, being in a very weird situation we all have been facing for months. That in the beginning, it might have been very depressing, I would say, and shocking. But when I look back at the last few months, I feel that there's a new beginning happening, and that there's a lot of space opening up, and I'm very excited for the future.
I like to hear that. So I think there are three main subjects I want to talk to you about, but we'll see how it goes. One is about you. One is about JCC Warsaw, and the other just sort of your take on Jewish Poland. So maybe starting with your journey. So you've been very Jewishly involved. Yeah, I don't say your whole life, but for a while, and different things. Maybe talk to me a little bit about that path to becoming the JCC director. In other words, from being a Jewish girl in Warsaw to being a Jewish woman in Warsaw and the director of the JCC.
Yeah, thank you. It's we have this joke that telling our Jewish story is something that we repeat over and over again, that it becomes like a memorized piece that you would just replay over and over again. But actually, it always strikes me that my personal journey, my personal Jewish journey, is very, very much connected to my professional life. And it's sometimes very challenging, but it's basically a life path. So, I'm this representative of the third generation post-Holocaust that was born still in the previous times in a different country that was called the Polish People's Republic. And when my consciousness was starting to be born, when I went to school, was really the time that all the systematic changes happened in Poland, and that really influenced the dynamics in terms of speaking about being Jewish and searching for the meaning of it. And I was very, very lucky to be exposed to the work of couple of big foundations and organizations that came to Poland or were in Poland since forever, that decided to invest and help the community to stand on our own feet, but first to give the opportunity for people with Jewish roots just to connect, just to meet with each other. So that was a Lauder Foundation. That's my first Jewish experience was the camp in Rechwałd, actually one in Zaborów. Hardly anyone remembers Zaborów, but Rechwałd was a very, very special place and a special dynamics where I would say my memories of being a girl, just knowing, having this information that, okay, I have Jewish roots, and that might be connected to the fact that I have a big family, but they're not in Poland. They're spread all over the world, and I have family in Israel, and that was about it, what it meant to be Jewish for me. And then suddenly I was exposed to meeting other people that had very similar experience of just knowing or just found out, and asking themselves, okay, what does it really mean to me? Does it have a meaning? Do I do something about it? And I'm very, very lucky to have, I have 3 older sisters, and each one of them is a teacher for me. But one of them in the context of my Jewish identity, Margalit Kordowicz, Gosia Kordowicz, who is a rabbi today, she was the one really to pave the way and to start searching. And she exposed me to the new being born Jewish community. And then I got really involved in summer camps, this very magical, simple idea, a program that actually transforms people's lives and gives this microcosm of very intensive experience. And then when I ask myself, why is that so powerful? Again, it comes back to connections. It comes back to meeting other people that you would pose the same kind of questions. And it's really not about answering in the same way. It's not really about having the ready-made answer. And along the way, I learned that you can have different answers for what it means to be Jewish. Who am I? You can have different answers in different periods of your life, but being able to share this with others that understand you, that was a very powerful experience.
Is there a moment, I'm sorry to interrupt, just because,
Sure.
for us internally here, these stories and we know, oh, and we have to repeat it and, oh, how'd you get here and this and, about this, but there are certain things that are always very interesting to me, even as somebody who's, this isn't my story of finding out that I'm Jewish or being exposed or growing up in a much more traditional Jewish background, but that I'm still really interested by sort of certain details of it. So for example, the way that people in Poland very often would say, I have Jewish roots, or the way that we use it, right? We don't use it in the rest of the world, or in the United States at least, or in Israel, they say, are you Jewish, right? Which is not the way that we generally put it here. We put it a lot more delicately, right? You would ask about somebody if they have Jewish roots, right? So, but I would ask you, as somebody who was aware of Jewish roots, was there a moment in your life, and it might be in camp where you're describing, where you went from somebody who would think of themselves as having Jewish roots to think of yourself in the same context of somebody of just being Jewish? I would assume that if I asked you right now, you wouldn't say, oh yes, I have Jewish roots. You would say, I'm Jewish. So is there a moment that happened for you, or can you think about just this idea?
It's very true what you're saying, and it's really connected with this inner path that you go through, that is catalyzed by things that happen around you. So it's hard for me to find like one event that's changed this way of thinking, but definitely there was a time that I would think about myself exactly as, oh yeah, I have Jewish roots, I have family in Israel. That would be my way of connecting to it. But then, when you don't connect it to experiences, this is the base. This is what you know. So gaining new experiences and connections fulfills this part in you that enables you to really call yourself this, big name. And in Poland, in the context of all of it, of the word Jew, like Polish Jews are Polish, so all the stereotypes and the stereotypical thinking, also in the language, is also part of our consciousness. So it takes time to deal with it, to unlock it, to redefine it. I have a memory of one thing that was really important in terms of my identity, actually in my being Polish Jewish. That's when I went to Israel for the first time. I was the first participant in Chidon Tanakh, in an international Bible contest. And don't tell anyone, I wasn't really chosen because of my knowledge of the Bible. It was just enough that I was a 14-year-old Jewish girl that the rabbi knew, and he said, okay, do you want to go? It was also a moment that my mother decided to go for the first time. So you can imagine how emotional it was, also in terms of reconnecting with the family, meeting some of the family members for the first time. But also that experience of me being among Jewish kids from all over the world and seeing the celebration of Jewishness. It's a very high level event. You meet the prime minister, and there is like all the people around you all the time asking you questions. And whenever I would introduce myself, that I come from Poland, people would have this weird look in their faces. Old people, young people, kids, adults, it didn't matter. Everyone was puzzled. Is this a joke that there is a Jewish person coming from Poland? Is that real?
Like coming from the moon.
Right. And maybe there's something suspicious in it. Or maybe I need help. I was offered help multiple times.
Blink twice if you need to be rescued.
Yes, and this was shocking for me because I was living a great life. Yes, of many puzzles and questions, but no understanding of the whole context that the world out there had and the opinions. So it was like a wake up for me. I started really asking questions to my mother and to talking with other people and with myself and reading why that is the situation, why my experience of being a Polish Jew is so different from what people think that it is. So it was one of those defining moments that I felt very Polish. But also I felt that, yes, there is absolutely space for Jewishness in this country, and there is space within me to be both, and I don't have to answer which part of my identity is more important. All these, interpretations of being like 50-50 or, the percentage or how stronger, like what is the strongest definition? I would say, come on, bring it on. There is like, the more the better, that it actually opens you up and it elevates you. So I think that experience was, something important. And then going back to the people that were going through similar processes, and actually the feeling of empowerment. I would say this is like another keyword for me and my path, that there is so much to do and so much to build. And very often we refer to rebuilding Jewish life, and I understand why, but it actually feels not really rebuilding something that used to be. It really feels very fresh. And this is something that I have very strongly in my mind, in my head, in my heart, when I lead the JCC is, who are we really? And who are the people in the community? Who are the potential people in the community? and how do we make something good out of it, something positive for ourselves, for the world, for next generations. And then definitely you can reach out to the heritage and learn. There's so much to learn. In order to understand who we are, it's good to look back. But the feeling of freshness and of the new beginning, that is the feeling of extreme empowerment.
Empowerment is a very good word. And you talk about rebuilding. I think that I'm one of the people who's guilty of using the term rebuilding. And I think that it's clear that it's not rebuilding in the sense that it could be interpreted as there isn't something here and you need to build it from anew, but it's of course building on what was. But I think that it's not, there are not great connotations in English in terms of rebuilding, but English can be a very, in sometimes imprecise language. And I think this is the time that, if people assume that it means that there's nothing there, then that's not what you're saying in terms of rebuilding. But if you have a house that has 5 stories and the top story gets knocked off, then you have to rebuild to make it complete. But it's sometimes, but I agree with you though, that we're not talking about that. And then when you get into it a little more deeply with people, then you can explain that first of all, you're not, we're not in Madagascar. This isn't an empty tabula rasa that we're trying. This is 1,000 years of Jewish history and of continuous Jewish history. And despite the damage done by the Holocaust, it obviously, and you're sitting here as testament to that, it didn't end everything, because you're a Polish Jew who's been here and whose family has been here. So your experience, so you went from the camp, so your Jewish awakening, and you go to the Chidon in Israel, and you start to be aware of this. I think something that people feel, that this almost shock, I think from a Jewish point of view, of that I have this family, not only direct family in Israel as you do, but that these people outside the rest of the world that kind of care about me and are connected to me in a way that is a particularly Jewish thing. Poles often tell me that when they're abroad and they connect with other Poles, they don't feel this sort of, oh, we're Poles, the 2 of us are Poles and we're in Alaska, we need to somehow connect. But if you're Jewish, so this idea of this something, for whatever the reasons in Jewish history, we don't have to go into all the reasons, but there is this idea of this responsibility that we feel for one another. And this is something, I guess, that people who I've heard with stories, these stories of the awakening Jewish identity, one of the surprising things that they feel is, oh, they learn about the history and this, but not really that, just this idea of being part of something like the Jewish people, which is a weird thing, because it's not, it's not exactly religion, and it's not exactly a family, and you feel it most, I think you feel it most when you haven't been part of it all the time, or when you haven't felt part of it all the time. And I think that's something that I get a lot, and that you get a lot for visitors. When people come and they hear your story, or they hear people in Krakow and Marciana and all the Hillel students here telling their stories, that this idea of seeing Judaism from somebody who, not that they're coming from the outside, but from somebody who's on the inside but didn't always realize they were on the inside, is fascinating for people who are coming from outside of Poland.
Absolutely. And, we talk about it a lot, that, hopefully we will get to this point sometime in the future, this challenge of people, a little bit forgetting about how exciting it is, because it's going to be just a regular thing. And this is going to be our challenge as, institutions. And I hope we'll get to that. But by that time, if we do a good job, there will be enough reasons why to continue, and what the community gives, being part of the community. Why does it just make sense?
I tell you, as maybe you can also, we'll talk about you and your job as sort of day-to-day life as director and how you're dealing with that. But for me, anytime I have a normal problem here, like, I don't know, the preschool one of the parents says that the bus needs to pick the kid up earlier, or like anytime that there's something that's sort of like just a normal problem of administrative thing, that it's not, oh, some newspaper said that there are no Jews in Poland, will you give a quote? And all of these particular Polish problems, anytime that it's something normal, it's so refreshing.
Oh yeah, my favorite ones are all the issues that you have a group of people saying that, okay, this is the right level of kosher, and then the other group saying we don't need kosher and we rebel against like keeping it, and then all the debates that are so Jewish, and the fact that we will never get to the point that everyone agrees. This is when I feel like, okay, it's becoming normal.
Exactly. Those are the nice moments. So your Jewish journey, and you go through the camps, and then you become a madricha, and you get more involved, of course, with the JDC, who, you know, just increasing presence for years and years in Poland. I think as the Lauder Foundation essentially backed away a little bit, JDC really came in and filled that gap, and built and ran programs, and eventually in 2013 opened JCC Warsaw, you as the founding director. So tell me about JCC Warsaw. I know about JCC Warsaw. Tell everyone about JCC Warsaw.
Sure. Wow. It's really, as I mentioned in the beginning, it feels like it was 7 years, and you know, the symbolic element of like closing certain periods and transforming into something new. It's very much resonates with me, especially now when the lockdown is on, and you know, we managed to have last Saturday to have our first in-person Havdalah. We did a gathering at the beach next to the river. It was very beautiful, and you know, seeing people in masks and in distance, but really joining, it was an incredible feeling. But this distance that we are all keeping, it also gives space to think a little bit more, like not to be caught up in everyday functioning. So my reflections about the JCC, what it is, and what we have managed to create, and we, when I say we, I think not only myself and the JDC and our wonderful team, but actually the community, the people that are involved. It feels like a very big step, for this community. Really starting from the beginning, when Warsaw felt like there's so many Jewish initiatives, but they don't talk to one another. That was one of the main feelings before opening. And Limud was this program that brought together everyone and proved that for one weekend a year, we can all come together and actually find things in common, and you don't have to define yourself against someone saying, oh, no, we're not from that synagogue, or the typical, again. So one of the main reasons to open the JCC was to connect, again, to give space that will be welcoming enough and open enough, so that literally everyone who is willing to be part of the community and agrees for the values of openness, and that wants to explore Jewishness in its various colors, that anyone is welcome, and that we can prove that there is so many things that we have in common, even though we might define ourselves in different ways. The second element and reason for the JCC to be open was the fact that the majority of Jews living in Warsaw were not associated with any of these multiple initiatives, and it felt like that if you really create, again, the safe space that doesn't demand from you to be that or any particular shape, but just for you to be and to influence what this is by who you are, that this would be the right way to involve people who are not involved. In other words, instead of really having a concept of what being Jewish and Polish Jewish is, and proposing it to people, it was, okay, let's deal with it together. And you're welcome to join and add whatever you have to add, or you don't have to be an active participant, but you can just, you know, sit there, eat your Boker Tov brunch and mingle with people, and then see how do you fit and what would you like this to become. And after 7 years, I have to say that it's not only my impression, but also it comes from many conversations and the focus groups. We examined it also, you know, with hard data, asking people. When we ask people what the JCC Warsaw is, they kind of speak the words of our mission that I just mentioned, which proves for me, it really is a proof that we achieved what we wanted to achieve. And now it's really the time to move on and to think together, what do we do with this energy? What do we do with the fact that we're together, that we feel good with each other, that we are able to not agree with each other? And I'm saying not only the JCC members or people who come to the JCC regularly, but I mean also the level of cooperation with other Jewish institutions, not only with the JCC itself, but among themselves. There has been a tremendous change. And again, it's a beautiful field to cultivate and to grow wonderful new future. So this is, you know, where my head is going and my heart is going. Like, what do we do with the fact that we have this warmth and understanding and ability to discuss things and to share? And how do we make it stable? How do we make it strong, standing on our feet? And how do we enable next generations to go even further?
So in terms of, it's inspiring to hear you talk about these things. I often feel that I'm so bogged down in daily things, so that everybody tells me to, you need to be able to have some distance to think in these larger thoughts, and it's a challenge for me to be able to get that space. And I don't feel personally like Corona gave me that space.
Oh, no.
Too much. Okay. No, but I'm happy that you were able to. I should think for both of us. But tell me a little bit about the programming and a little bit about what's going on in terms of JCC. Is your programming primarily targeted toward community members? I know not exclusively, but primarily you're toward community members. Do you generally look at the community and you say, I want to provide programming for different age groups? Is that how you're sort of looking at that? With obviously some things that are going to be languages and stuff that are going to be cross age or cross generational. And maybe talk a little bit about your sort of Boker Tov, because it's really a signature program of yours.
Absolutely. Actually, the very base from the beginning for us was because we think about community in the largest possible way. So all the programs, with tiny little exceptions here and there, but really 99% of what we do is absolutely open to anyone who wants to join. And obviously, depending on the type of a program, sometimes there are more people coming from outside, and if it's a more intense educational, let's say more demanding cycle of workshops, then it would be more internal, community internal. Mm-hmm. But we always share with the same group of people, meaning through the same paths, what's going on, and everyone is invited. And the way you said, like, okay, we sit and think, okay, different age groups, definitely, like this is, when you think, what is the JCC? It provides programming, educational, social events around Jewish topics for different age groups. So we could look at it this way. And we have, in the very beginning, it was basically together with my team, we would sit and think, okay, what are the creative ways to engage people? We were always thinking about the fact that we compete with all the cultural and educational institutions, compete because you have limited time and energy to participate.
Yeah.
So that the level of programming has to be very high, and it's not enough that it's Jewish. It just has to be high quality. And a lot of the programs that we were creating during the first couple of years was coming out from the office, basically, and the different inspirations we had. But with the development of the community, more and more programs and initiatives came from the members, from the people. There were people knocking on our door, or not even knocking, shouting from downstairs, saying, how about we do this? Or how about we, cooperate with that? And so there's a lot of community members driven projects. And well, there's a really big variety of things. So we run Hebrew Ulpan intensive courses. We wouldn't do the regular once a week studies because there are other places that give that opportunity. And also from the beginning, because we wanted to be, and we want to be, the connecting point, and not, this another entity that is saying, okay, we're not you, and so we were searching for space that is not covered. And we would do a lot of artistic initiatives, encouraging the community members to express themselves through art, because I believe that this really goes well with this searching element of what it means to be Jewish for me, that it gives the endless space to express yourself. So we cooperate with Mikołaj Grinberg, who is a photographer and a writer. So there would be a lot of workshops run by him. And there's actually this micro community that was built around it. For several years, we did a cycle called Bima, the theater performative readings of plays, theater plays that we involved actors and directors. We do a lot of stuff for families and for children. This is really the biggest group in numbers that is involved. So the regular Moadon, which is our Sunday school, and Uga, the culinary workshops, Friday evening, that we go around the world. We pick a place. It could be Morocco, it could be Belarus, and we learn about Jewish history there a little bit. And we take the menu that a family could use for Shabbat meal, we cook it together, and then we have a celebration together. We would do a lot of improvisation for kids and theater, creating Purim spiels, and on and on and on. Boker Tov. Boker Tov was one of these programs that in the beginning, it was only me saying, okay, I'm not gonna block ideas, but it's not really my favorite thing. Like, are we there only to feed people? No, we have a mission, we have, important values to pass on. But it was really my lesson that I learned, that by opening the door and inviting people to eat and making the food kosher for maybe 1% of people who come, that it's important for really a small group. And inviting people to sit at a common table. It was really the time when it started to be big in Warsaw. Like, different restaurants would open and say, okay, we put just one big table so that people mix. Strangers would sit next to each other, and Kuba Chojecki and Maryla Musidłowska were the people that, you know, understood in this business and in those ideas, and they came with this proposition. They said, okay, we can try, but, you know, how does it really build community? Well, it really extremely does, because the Boker Tov became this recognizable event that would, on one hand, enable the community members to celebrate in a very laid-back atmosphere, to bring their families, to bring their friends, to show them, this is my community and it's open for you. But also it's very, very important part for a lot of guests coming from abroad, that this is the event once a week. You always know it's happening. And this is when the mixing of people, that it starts with passing the bowl of, you know, egg salad or hummus, that later on becomes this platform for people to exchange ideas. There's so many businesses that started, you know, over Boker Tov, or new friendships, or reunions of people that once knew each other and then they met again. That's, I really admit that I learned the lesson that this is really the way, just to enable people to do it themselves. So I invite everyone, once we reopen, I hope it will happen soon.
I always feel like anytime I have a good idea, I'm disappointed, because I feel like I don't want any of the ideas to come from me. I feel like my job shouldn't be coming up with ideas. It should be sort of helping nourish things and guide things and help facilitate. But anytime, you know, you don't want to, you want to think because you think of ideas, but you don't really want to be the one coming up with ideas. And I guess the most satisfying and the most long lasting are the ones that really come from the bottom up. So it's nice when you see stories like that happening. So how big is your team at the JCC?
So we have the core of 6 people, dealing with everything from communication through children programs, summer camps. We also run summer camps for kids and for families, for participants from all over the country. We have, we're running an institution, and it's like the core is 6 people, women, woman power. Wow. But all together, when you add all the collaborators and teachers and people who share their knowledge and skills within the JCC framework, then you will get up to over 40 people. So it's small and big at the same time.
No, it's a fantastic institution, and people always, they don't know, oh, the only JCC, you know, all the time I get it, oh, is there a JCC anywhere else? Is there in Warsaw? And I always, you know, of course, to send them up. I think it's remarkable what you've been able to do. And, you know, for us, being able to see what you're doing and help teach us things, it's been interesting. I always, you know, it's such a different community. I find it fascinating in different ways how Krakow, of course, the similarities between the type of people that we're serving, but in terms of just the different role, I guess, that we have in a community at Warsaw, I always feel like Warsaw has a lot more advanced, developed Jewish ecosystem and structure than we have here. So when you talk about trying to figure out programming and, oh, that's already happening somewhere, we don't need to do that. Like for us, that's not really an issue. It's more like, oh, okay, this needs to happen. We probably, in a perfect world, shouldn't be doing that as a JCC, but okay, people need help, so let's have a welfare program and help people with their heating bills because these older people need that, and that system is not working as well as it should.
Absolutely, but I think it comes from the same motivation, meaning you open your eyes and ears, and you make sure that you're relevant. I think that's the key. So yeah, we have different ecosystems, but the motivation and the way of doing what we do. I think it has a lot of things in common, and I can say that the inspiration is mutual. Like there's so much that we learn. For example, about thinking a little bit outside of what we are here locally. I think, and always it has been like this, that in terms of explaining and going out there and shaking the wider world, you guys are doing amazing things, and it took us a while, it took me personally a while to understand how important that is, that it actually helps us grow. The way that you explain who you are, it makes you reflect on that. And so I think that there's, a lot of inspirations going back and forth.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Just tell me what the best thing about your job and the worst thing about your job. Briefly.
Wow. Give me a few seconds. Maybe you have a joke to say.
How many JCC directors does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Okay, I have answers. That's it.
There you go. It's only going to get more difficult from here, Agata.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So I think it's the same thing. The best and the most difficult part, which is that it's not really a job. It's much more than that. It's part of who I am. It's a mission. It's something that I devoted my adult life to, for like the big part of it. And just sometimes it's extremely difficult. Sometimes, you fantasize about, okay, maybe, just working in an office from 9 to 5 and then going back home. It's a big load, and learning how to balance it and how to make sure that you stay balanced. Yes, I think that's the word. Is again something that you have to learn. So I'm on the way.
Yeah. Well, if there might be certain things that I could give you advice about. Probably a few, very few. Work-life balance or anything like that. It's not one of the things that I can help you with. I'm very bad at that. But there's an idea. There's an idea that if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. So.
Exactly. So this is, it all depends on the angle you look at it. So that's why I feel I wouldn't trade it for anything else. And I think
this idea also of work-life balance, a little complicated. I have a board member who's every single day talking to me about work-life balance, literally every single day. But then I think, you know what? I lived on the kibbutz for 7 years and I was very happy on the kibbutz. And I learned a lot about the world on the kibbutz. And I think that this idea of work-life balance is a very, very modern concept. What do you mean work-life? Like what we do at work is also our life, and our life is also our work. So if you're doing something like this, especially in a mission-driven job where your job extends, if you're in the supermarket at 10 o'clock at night and some community member comes up to you, that's also your job to be, there's not really much downtime in the community positions like this. So I don't know. I think that sometimes even the idea of work-life balance is a little more complicated. And maybe if you work in a bank and you can separate it and you're just doing that job, and then when you finish, you don't think about it. But that's obviously not the case in what you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know who Benji Lovett is?
Sure. I saw his question.
Yeah, Benji's the
JCC t-shirt fanatic.
Benji's a big fan of the AMA and stuff, and we maybe we'll think of a way to connect him also to Warsaw.
Beautiful. Looking forward.
Very important question that I always ask, which is just because I always ask, what are your 3 favorite films?
Ooh. Okay, Big Lebowski.
Oh, okay, good. I like that.
Then, well, it changes. If you ask this like tomorrow, the answers might be different. But Sorrentino. I really, really adore Sorrentino. So the youth and what's the name of the movie that is happening in Rome? It's very beautiful. I forgot now. I think it's La Grande Bellezza. That's the title. I highly recommend to all of you. It's really beautiful. Okay, then the third would be I don't know. Let's leave the two.
And are you team Latka or team Hamantash?
Humantash. I'm I love sweets. And too much oil is challenging. Like Hanukkah is really one of the heavy roads for me. So yeah, Hamantash and definitely.
Hamantash. Interesting. Most people Latka, but I'm happy to see you coming in from Hamantash.
Oh yeah, and I can defend it and.
Ooh, I think that we might have a job for you coming up.
Right. I'm open.
Keep yourself free next coming up years in July.
But no poppy seeds. No poppy seeds. Other fillings.
Other fillings, but not poppy seeds.
No.
You don't want to fail the opium drug test.
Yeah, that's my objective, definitely.
Agata, thank you so much for this. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm happy you had the chance to. We were able to let more and more people hear from you. I think that you're wonderful, and what you've built is amazing and inspiring. And thank you for that.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye everybody.